And the second thing that got to me this morning was the story about Governor Crist's schedule, which shows many blank days. Now, I realize that I am not the thought police in this county. I think that's the newspaper's job, to be the thought police. But they write this story about Governor Crist's schedule showing many blank days, 62 weekdays since taking office, have no events or appointments. And I began to think about my own calendar and how it is worked. Now, I'm considered a part-time employee, or we are considered part-time employees, the county commission, and I know the governor's considered a full-time employee, but the Florida Constitution does not say, by the way, that the governor has to work a 40-hour work week or a 60-hour work week or a 100-hour work week. And I don't know why the newspapers think that they can rewrite the Constitution and determine what Charlie Crist's job may actually be, but they don't have the right to do that. That's our job as Floridians, and I know that for me, I spend lots of time on the phone during the day, and every single phone call I make is not listed on my calendar. And I'm sure that that is the case. I mean, Charlie's got to be on the phone with the White House, with Congressman Robert Wexler. I'm sure he's on the phone with Mel Martinez and Governor Schwarzenegger and a whole bunch of people that he talks to all day long for hours, and yet for some reason the newspapers have to rag on him because he's got some blank schedule, some blank days on his schedule. Now, I understand that this is a story because, again, it's sexy and, oh, my God, what's the governor doing all day long? But it always bothers me when newspapers write things like, questions have been raised, or in this story they actually say critics claim. Well, who are these people who are criticizing? Why don't you name them? You know, when I talk to somebody, or when you look at my calendar, it has exactly who I've spoken to, who I have an appointment with, who my source is. When I have a county commission meeting on Tuesday, there's backup material which is open to the public. The newspapers are always crying for transparency and accountability. Where's their transparency and their accountability? They get to say, questions have been raised. Yeah, you know who's raising the questions? The newspapers are. In fact, I had a conversation with the editor of the Miami Herald about this, and I said to him, you know, you write these stories and you say questions have been raised, but you're the only ones raising the questions. And his response is, well, that's what we have to do. Well, my response to that is, then you should write in your paper, we at the newspaper are raising questions. Or our reporter, Mr. John Smith, has raised questions. Or our newspaper is critical of. But don't hide behind this critics say or questions have been raised, because I don't think it's fair to the public who reads the paper, who are probably wondering who the critics were or are, when they're really just the guys who are writing the story, who are criticizing. And you know, I happen to like Governor Crist. I think he's a nice guy, and I don't think he's doing a bad job here in Florida. So and I'm really not one to defend a Republican governor, but in this case, you know, I don't see, there's no story here. The story says he has no slated events for the previous Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, so he's not allowed to take some time off? You know, he's always the governor. If he has a Sunday event, then he goes to a Sunday event, but we're not allowed to take some time off. We have to be on 24/7. People who write the stories for the papers aren't on 24/7. I can tell you that, and I'd like to know where their transparency and their accountability is, because I don't see it, and I don't think it's fair to the readers when you say, critics say, or questions have been raised, when the only ones who are criticizing or raising the questions are the people who are actually writing the story, and I think the newspaper should be required to say that. That's my soapbox for today.